Hey,
What you doing?
I'm Brandon Horwin,
And I'm Sophie Williams.
and today's special guest is.
I'm Mike Berkowitz from Indianapolis, Indiana. I've lived in New York for 40 years. Was in Los Angeles prior to that. I conduct orchestras. I also play drums, and have been lucky enough to work with a lot of very talented people over the years. So that's pretty much who I am and how I got here today.
Great. Well, we are so excited to have you on Whatcha Doin with Brandon Horwin and Sophie.
Williams. Yeah.
Great.
Um, Thanks for coming on today. And I just wanted to start by asking you a little bit about your journey to music and your career in entertainment and kind of how you got there. If you could take us through that for a couple minutes.
All right. I'll give you a couple minutes worth. As I said, I'm from Indianapolis. For some reason, as a young child, I showed an affinity to playing drums. So my parents bought me a drum set when I was in the third grade. We had a lot of opera records and Al Jolson records and big band records around the house. So I was always listening to that as I was a kid. So I started playing when I was in pretty much the third grade, drums, continued all the way through college. When I went to Indiana University, I was, part of an orchestra there. Al Cobine was a band leader. He had a relationship with Henry Mancini, and so we would go on the tours on the weekends, and we would go out and play gigs with Mancini, Andy Williams, Johnny Mathis. At one time, at the end of a concert in Cleveland, Mancini said to me, "What are you going to do when you graduate?" I said, "I have no idea." He said, "Come to LA." So I went to LA. And I'd given it a lot of thought and whatnot. Prior to that, in Indianapolis, I was doing theater work at a place called Starlight Musicals in the summers. I was working at a nightclub called the Embers that had talent ranging from Frankie Lane and just once A level, now B or C level kind of talent, but real people. And so I got a lot of experience playing even before I left Indiana. I moved to LA the first night. I saw a friend of mine, Tom Hensley, who was been to LA for a year. He met up with me. We went over to Helen Reddy's house the first night I was there. So I began, this is 71. So I began a relationship with Helen that lasted until 1974 as her drummer. Through Helen, I met Nelson Riddle when we did the Helen Reddy show on NBC. He was the music director. So that took me to the Nelson Riddle part. Then I was doing theater. I was working with all kinds of folks in LA. I was in rock and roll bands. I worked with the guys in the Doors. I worked with the Association, Seals and Crofts, Mac Davis. So I was doing that as well. My hair was down to my shoulders, so it seemed only. I was always being thrown conducting things while I was doing this. I'd come in for a TV program one time, and the leader said, "You're in the only position that everybody can see you. You're going to have to give us all the cues," or things like that. And people were giving me various kinds of books and whatnot. So it always seemed inevitable that I would somehow start conducting. I was working in LA with all kinds of folks from, uh, you know, the great choreographers and people at Civic Light Opera that I met. All of this kind of work that from rock and roll to Broadway and whatnot. 1980, I moved to New York for various reasons. Started working on Broadway, and not long after that, began working with Marvin Hamlish. I worked with him for a week, and I became his conductor after the first week. I was the drummer the first week. So after that, I became the conductor and started working pops orchestras and things like that. But I was also working with, as I said, Helen and whatnot earlier, and all those groups. But in New York, Michael Feinstein, Marvin Hamlish, I was his musical director for 10 years. Liza Minnelli and Michael Crawford and folks like that. So I've always been doing that. And then after Marvin and I kind of parted ways, I was doing pops conducting, and I've been doing, freelance pops conducting or principal pops conducting for various orchestras it's been almost 30 years now. So I have a huge library that, someday will be at the Library of Congress, and I collect arrangements. Michael Feinstein and I are both avid collectors and people who are into the preservation of old arrangements and whatnot. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And other than that, it was a busy year until March 5th. And then it stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of shifts in your career, is what I'm hearing. So
Yeah.
is that because it's just the opportunity that's taken you there, or did you just change interest at these certain times?
It was just the opportunity, I have the ability to play and work in many different styles. I mean, I worked in orchestras as a percussionist and whatnot, and working rock and roll things. But I come at everything with kind of a jazz background as far as my approach. So I'd always done theater, so whenever that came up, I always was comfortable there. The rock and roll thing, I'd been working with a lot of folks. It was only appropriate at the time. So it's wherever the work has taken me. But then ultimately, as the conducting is kind of like come to the fore, that's where I've been. I with Liza, I was her musical director for the time I was there as well. So in that case, it's a job where you conduct from the drums, which is an interesting thing. But yeah, I've always just gone wherever it takes me, and I've enjoyed playing in different kinds of ensembles, working with different groups, and it's been interesting that way. As opposed to just staying one direction.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you also lead me into our next question, which is what's your favorite concert, orchestra, artist you've ever worked with or for?
Well, I love them all. I will tell you that a couple of the greatest concert things I did. Paul Gemignani, who he and I worked together since 40 some odd years. I was always the drummer with him, but that's just fine. We did the Follies concert in 1985 with New York Philharmonic, which is kind of a famous concert. And I've never heard applause like that for those the dress rehearsal and the two performances. And Paul and I always judge everything by that. We did we did any number of other events where we go close. It was close, but not the same. We did a My Favorite Ladies of Broadway thing with Julie Andrews, and she sang a line in I forget what it was. It was a thing with My Fair Lady with Michael Crawford, and she sang just this one line, and the place went crazy because of her vocal problems and not singing anymore and all that stuff. And that was amazing to be in the middle of. Conducting the London Symphony, pretty good, but I always say I still put my tuxedo in a bag and got on the tube afterwards and went to my hotel. So it wasn't like, Leonard Bernstein's opening night with the Philharmonic, but still was a great experience for me. So there's been many highlights. Liza, working with Liza, I'll tell you, you never feel an audience's love for a performer like I felt with Liza concerts. Everybody's there rooting for her, and and she's when Liza is on, there's no one better. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, that actually touches on my next question. Is I know you worked with Liza extensively on her run on Broadway, and then you toured with her a bit. So what was that tour like?
Well, we toured for years, and we toured mostly through Europe. We were gone or in South America, Australia. So we were everywhere that you could be, Italy, France, Germany, the Netherlands, all over South America, Australia. We did, all the main places there. Working with Liza is great. Liza is really, she knows exactly what she wants. She's got great ears. I had a lunch recently with a man named Albert Poland, who was a Judy Garland lover, as well you should be. But he started as a teenager. He started the Judy Garland fan club, and so we were discussing all this. As you know, I have a lot of the Judy Garland music, so we were talking about all of that. And I said, well, to me, Liza's the best performer I ever saw. He said, better than Judy? I said, well, I didn't see Judy, but Liza's energy is different, and Liza sings and dances and the other thing. You know, Judy was incredible, but to me, as a live performer, I thought Liza was the best of all time. And he said, well, the best you ever saw. So I said, all right. But working with her was incredible. You know, there were a lot of wonderful times, lots of great venues. We traveled with our own band, 13 guys. And so that was always great, the camaraderie and the hang, you know, and she would like to hang after the concerts and, you know, go have dinner or something. So, you know, it was a ball.
That's great. Well, that actually, I was going to ask this question a little later on, but it sort of ties into what we're talking about. And that brings me to the Judy Garland or at Carnegie Hall concert at the Axelrod that we both worked on together. That's where we met.
Yes.
And so you were at the helm of the music that night, I believe, if my memory serves me right, 40-piece orchestra on the stage in Asbury Park. Obviously, Lorna Luft hosted the evening. So just, you know, how do you look back on that evening and what we created? And, you know, especially in terms of bringing that music back and those arrangements.
Well, I mean, I've been doing Judy Garland now since 1996 or 7, I think. We did my first opportunity to play that music was at Carnegie Hall. We did a group of concerts with John Schreiber, who now is in charge of New Jersey Performing Arts Center, was producing a bunch of events. We did an MGM evening and tributes to various people, Sinatra and whatnot over the years. And so that was the first time I got to work on that music. And Mort Lindsay was there, who was Judy's conductor. So I feel like I was able to kind of, you know, understand his approach to it and whatnot. And I've gone through his archives as well. So I've spent some time delving into that. Mort was a great musician. I mean, a lot of people know him from the Merv Griffin show, but he was somebody there with the beginning with Barbra Streisand, and somebody also who worked with Judy for years. He loved Judy. And then over the years, I kept collecting more music and finding whatever I could and trying to put that together. And Michael Feinstein and I have been working on putting all of that music back together. I've been helping him, other people as well. So that concert was great. I mean, you know, what's interesting, it took 5 ladies to do what Judy did. You know, we had 5 different singers. And you think of one person standing up there and singing all those songs over the course of the evening. And we had marvelous singers, you know, in addition to Lorna with Karen Mason and Debbie Gravitt. You know, I mean, who else was there? Do you remember?
Joan Ellison and
then
Gabby Stravelli.
There you go.
Yeah.
So everybody is just incredible in their own right, you know. And Karen and I had done some concerts with orchestras prior to that with the Garland music. And also I'd done it with Joan, and also I'd done it with Debbie. So all 3 of them kind of knew the material as well at that point. And of course, Lorna kind of knows it. So it's not too, and I'd worked with Lorna a number of times. She actually was with us at the Palladium in London when we did a Garland tribute too. So you know, when you have those arrangements are as good as anything you're ever going to hear. Those arrangements are as good as the Sinatra things, you know. Nelson Riddle did a lot of those arrangements, and he, of course, did a lot of the things for Sinatra as well. So, but he wrote differently for Judy. I think everybody who wrote for Judy, you know, did their best work. You know, Nelson had an interesting thing he told me one time. He said when he was working with Judy Garland, she kept saying, "You have to protect me." And he said, it wasn't until years later I realized I had to protect her from herself. And you know, I always think about those kind of things in terms of, you know, whenever I'm conducting, I'm trying to think about the people, but and what made them do what they did and their motivations and whatnot, as silly as that may seem to some. But I try, and when I conduct that music or any music that, you know, is another artist, I try and do it as true to the form as possible. I try and teach the style to people if they haven't heard it or aren't aware of what it was. And, you know, I'm aware of the ins and outs of all that music. So, you know, I try and make it aware to all the people in the orchestra so that it sounds, you know, like it did in you know, on the stage at Carnegie Hall, for example. So, you know, and when it comes off, it's great. And it did that night. It was great.
Yeah, it really was. That was awesome.
So you already mentioned that you were having a busy year up until early March. So where were you exactly during the COVID shutdown? Did you have projects you were working on? Did you have to move some of them virtually?
Yeah, we haven't done any virtual things. I was, January I was conducting. In February, we did a Jerry Herman tribute on Broadway, February 3rd. And we did that. And then I went out to California to go do a concert. It was a James Bond concert with all the music and a great singer. And then I came back, and then I went out to California again to do a Frank Sinatra at the Sands gig March 5th. And that was the last one. I came home. I was supposed to go to France a week later, and I knew I wasn't going to go. But everybody was saying, "You can't go, you can't go." I said, "Well, let's just wait and see." And the night before, 4:30 in the morning, my phone went off. It said, "Don't come." So March 5th was the last gig. Haven't done anything virtually. We've talked about various things. Um, Streaming things are interesting. It's hard to monetize them, and it becomes an issue as far as me flying to California and doing things with a 36-piece orchestra, that's usually a 70, and and then I don't know. I look at a lot of my friends have been spending a lot of time doing broadcasts at home and whatnot, and 12 people are watching, so I just I'm waiting till we can get back live again and hope people wear their masks and do all the protocols and social distancing, and when the vaccine comes out, everybody do that, and the sooner that happens, the better for all of us.
For sure. For sure. Um, so where do you see live music and concerts and Broadway shows and live entertainment going from here? You know, do you see, you just mentioned the vaccine and whatnot, but even with that, do you see certain precautions being taken that are different from what we had obviously last year? And where do you see audiences filing into
Yeah.
spaces and feeling that comfort level again?
Well, people are going to have to feel comfortable, obviously, and feel that it's safe. At the same time, Broadway and all of us, as far as concert world and performing, that it's been decimated, and it's nothing but a group of friends now who are trying to figure out what the heck to do. So, I don't know what the answer is, when people are going to feel comfortable enough, after the vaccines and the numbers get to where it makes sense. I saw a picture today of 5,600 people watching Phantom of the Opera. I think it was in Taipei, all wearing masks, but the numbers there are basically zero because of their protocols. So if we would all adhere to those, I think we might have a good shot of getting rid of this, as opposed to making it a political issue. But be that as it may, those people felt comfortable enough to sit next to each other in this huge theater. Once again, everybody had a mask. But we can get there. It's just it's going to take a long time. I don't think it's going to happen next year. That's for sure. As far as seeing the numbers and getting things up. We've canceled all my concerts that were this season and moved them to next season. And hopefully that'll happen. I was supposed to do a thing in France this coming, December, the end of the month, right after Christmas and New Year's Eve, and that's gone away. Of course. I mean, you see what's happening in France. So I don't know. I'm basically retired anyhow, so it's fine with me. I, I don't miss the concerts so much as I miss the traveling, believe it or not. And the friendship and the hang. The music is always fun, but I miss all the other parts that go with it, I guess. But I'm 71, and enjoying the fact that I can sit here a little while longer and tough it out. I guess not everybody has that opportunity, and so I'm lucky, I guess, that way. And I'm not bragging about that. It's just the way it worked out. My age is what it is. I wish I was younger. But at any rate, so we're standing by. We're doing whatever we can. I don't know what the world's going to be like. I just hope everything gets back to normal or semi-normal within, a year would be good, but who knows?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
do you think, Brandon? What's happening at the Axelrod and those places? What do they have to say?
I know. I mean, they have been able to transfer onto the virtual platform through education and through certain cabarets and such, and like fundraising events per se. And that's sort of what we're here at Catholic University, where we are studying. We're seniors here in musical theater and the drama department, and we're virtual too. But it does take a certain sense of creativity and an urgent sense of continuing your passion to go forward despite circumstances. So I know for next semester's season, they're still looking at maybe bringing the actors and performers and creative team into spaces and maybe live streaming the performance.
Okay.
So that's definitely a step forward, but that's right now as we move forward and proceed with spikes in cases, especially right here in Washington, D.C., that certainly could change at any moment. But I hope the best. The Axelrod is a great space and a great theater that fosters creativity and growth and exceptional art. And we just had Luis Salgado on 2 episodes ago, who directs there quite frequently for their musical theater programming. So I'm just hoping the best for them.
Yeah. Well, for all of us, but them too. Yeah.
So I have a question. What advice do you have for young artists and musicians to stay creative during this time and even going forward?
Well, don't get discouraged. I think is important. I don't know, just be creative in terms of, and curious. I mean, be curious and learn as much as you can. I mean, I'm still getting new music sent here. I'm still, cataloging and doing things. Nothing has stopped as far as, my day to day between the library work and the studying for new concerts and things like that. So, all you can do is be prepared, because when the moment comes, you just got to be ready. And, you don't get that many opportunities. I mean, I can say that there were opportunities that I was lucky enough to get that it worked out, and a few that, I wasn't the right guy for, or I blew the opportunity. So, do everything you can to be ready for your moment, and now when you're a student, this is the only time in your life that you have nothing else to do but study. That's what you're there for. After a while, you'll have families and you'll have cars and dogs and cats and responsibilities, and then you don't have the luxury to study and spend the time poring over books, or as my teacher used to say, sitting in a practice room with a little blue light over you and practicing your triangle, So, then that's what you should be doing now. Everybody, who's in that wonderful world of, academia and colleges and whatnot, studying for this, learn everything you can. And you ask, the various places I've gone creatively and styles and whatnot, learn all the styles, learn to belt, learn your head voice, all those kind of things, movement. There's so much that you need to know now to be successful. Broadway churns people out. You come in, you're there for a couple years. You've come from a university background and whatnot, and you've been really well schooled. But you're in the course a couple of years. Unless you break out, then you have to figure out Plan B. And Plan B is not a bad thing to think about, even throughout all of this sort of stuff. But if it breaks in your way, then you don't have to worry about that. But just be prepared. Take advantage of this time.
Definitely.
That's great. And this is a fun question to ask, because it's always fun to hear what the response may be. But what are one or two of your most favorite stories that you have from your years working in the business that just pop out as like a great story to tell, or a time that you remember something really cool or funny happening throughout your career?
Well, I've got a bunch of stories, and some names you wouldn't know because they're well before your time. I'll tell you one story though that is kind of funny. And, you'll hopefully. We did the movie The Great Gatsby with Nelson Riddle, and it's the one with Mia Farrow and Robert Redford and whatnot. And Nelson won an Academy Award for music adaptation. And the opening night party for this event was at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in Beverly Hills. And Nelson's band was going to be there. We played. We were on stage. And on stage in front of the orchestra was a line of azalea bushes that came from Paramount Studios. They were all in little white, little wooden containers and all across the stage. And then there was other greenery as well. Well, Nelson's band was made up of, a bunch of grizzled veterans, shall I say. These guys had been through the big band wars and had worked with Sinatra and everything else. And I was a kid. I was 23, 24, 25. And we played this concert and played the evening, this opening night thing for The Great Gatsby. And I was putting my drums away. Well, the guys in the band, as they were leaving, the saxophonists and the trumpets and the trombones, they each picked up a azalea bush and took it out to their cars and left with them. So by the time my drums were packed away, there was nothing left. There were no azalea bushes for me to steal. And I looked around and there was an 8-foot palm tree. And so I picked up this palm tree that was it was also in a large kind of container. And I was driving a 1956 Mercedes at the time with a sunroof. I opened up the sunroof and I put the top of the palm tree through that. And I was driving in my tuxedo with a 1956 Mercedes through Beverly Hills at 1 a.m. with a palm tree sticking out of the top. And a policeman pulls up next to me, looks at me, sees, that I'm basically wearing a tuxedo and whatnot. He didn't bother me. I went home. I brought the palm tree into my bedroom and there it sat for a week. I got a phone call a week later from a contractor saying Nelson is doing a concert, or we were doing That's Entertainment. There was some sort of That's Entertainment film, or there was a television show also involved with it at one point. And could I be at Paramount to do this recording? I said, yes. And then he said, you don't know anything about those azalea bushes, do you? Because they belong to the studio. Unless they're all returned, Nelson is going to have to pay for them. And I said, no, I don't know anything about an azalea bush. And then there was a pause. He says, you don't know anything about a palm tree, do you? So, and that became a famous story in LA. All the guys in the band knew about that. So, we had a lot of good times.
That's amazing. That is so
That's
funny.
a great story.
Okay,
we were crazy.
Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your stories and just talking with us about your, illustrious career. Is there anything else, any last remarks you want to add? Anything you want to promote?
No, nothing. Just thank you very much for having me on. I've enjoyed it. Thanks for changing the time at the last minute. Not that anybody knows, but I thank you very much. And, everybody stay well, stay safe. And let's see our way through this and get back to live performance and music and dance and acting and all the things that we love to do.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was an honor, and it's always great to talk to you and hear your incredible career.
Thanks so much. See you later. Bye-bye.